Hey everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the hardest boss fights in Code Vein 2 on a tier list. We got 15 of the hardest fights in the game. We'll be breaking down the strategies that I use to beat them, my general thoughts on them, and honestly I do think that Code Vein 2 does have some pretty solid boss fights across the board with unique mechanics, like the retainer of Idris here, which had the tentacles on his back, and that's where you had to attack to do the massive amounts of damage, which you can see if you knocked him down like this, you can do some pretty silly stuff right behind him here. But we're first starting off here with one of the tutorial bosses, the Resurgence Abomination here. So this is one of the first that we do encounter. It's honestly not that much of a fight. It's just teaching you the mechanics. You get the bat jail here, which was nice as it has a bit of a range attack. You can see there, it lets you dodge out of the way of his attacks. This wasn't too bad of a fight, honestly, and yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this one. It's going in the D tier. It was just a tutorial. Now I will be skipping other bosses like Edward the Corporeal here, because they were nothing compared to the Dejected Assailant FRANZ. It was one of the first bosses that we actually have a wall here now. This boss fight is pretty challenging because you don't have that many tools to get yourself that strong. I was using the rune blades here, which were nice because you could throw them onto him. He just attacks so quickly, and that's what made this really tough. Honestly, I wish I did see this fight a little bit later into the game. I think it would have been much better received. I know a lot of people are not a huge fan of this fight because, yeah, you don't have that many tools. You don't really, it's a DPS check and you can't really do DPS, so it's a tough fight that's kind of grindy. I do think that if this was maybe like an hour later in the game, that it's obviously would be received much better. It's a second phase too, that's a big pain. He has a really cool weapon that I'd highly recommend using for the entire game because it's just so good. So you see the bayonet that he's got there, it's called the Raider Bayonet. Honestly, what I think to be the strongest weapon in this game, it's got a crazy shot. That's not the point of this, but you will be seeing that weapon later on as I go through because it's seriously just so crazy. The rune blades here being another really good one. He just got so many quick attacks here, just making him a complete pain to deal with. So yeah, I'd actually have to say that FRANZ, the Dejected Assailant here, this is one of the harder fights in the game. I'm not throwing him in the S tier, but I'm going to say for where he's at, he's easy A tier, just very challenging without much tools to actually do stuff. But you don't have many heals, and he can do crazy combos like this. Like I dodge a couple of them, but then all it takes is him just wombo comboing you a couple times there with his quick attacks, and you're down. So yeah, I'd have to say he goes in the A tier. There's other boss fights like the Mutated Survivor Burned here, or the Assassin fights. These were decently challenging. Like, I'd probably just say that they'd be like C tier. There's actually quite a few boss fights in the game that were like kind of minor fights that didn't really feel like too much of a challenge. Like the Darkborn Leader here, I'd also throw in the C tier. They're not included in the list, but I just want to quickly talk about them as I had footage. And next up is the Metagen Remnant here. Now this boss fight is one that we actually can repeat multiple times. You can find this later on in the end game areas. You may see it if you watch any of my build guide videos. It's a nice one just to wail on. I like this fight kind of. It's not like super challenging. She does leave like acid around behind her, which is kind of annoying to deal with because you typically, with large monster bosses like this, like to get to the backside. This is the Mjolnir Hammer, by the way. That moveset is insane. It was really good in this fight because of how she's like built up high, and that hammer you saw jumps up high as well. Now, a lot of the bosses in this game were weak to Venom here. I found she had actually a pretty high resistance to Venom, making her a little bit more challenging here. This fight was actually pretty fun. Again, for something that you see again later on, like whenever you face her in the final area of the game, you can honestly just keep spamming her if you want to. It's a great place to train. I do it often. She's not too challenging then, but it's the point in the game where you face off against her here where you see, I'm not doing anything for damage. And yeah, she has some really cool, like those attacks there, you can actually just dodge whirl towards her here and dodge pretty easily. So will not be in the hardest fight in the game. It was a pretty decent one overall. I don't think it was a bad fight. I'd have to say this one is probably going to be a B tier or C tier pick. I don't think it was a bad one. Just when you face off against her again, you don't have that many tools to be able to deal with her that well, so it's a challenge. And next up is Josee the Blind Hero. This is a boss that you'll be fighting a lot of times. It's kind of funny, I had to fight all three of these often. She has these little acid orbs that'll follow you around, you just have to avoid them. Her fight itself is pretty nice. I also really like the blade that she has, which you can get from this. Again, it's another weapon that you want to be using. It's an offensive foray throughout most of the game, so early on you get two of the best weapons, which I gotta say is really nice for players that don't want to have to invest a lot of tools and resources into upgrading a bunch of weapons. But yeah, this fight itself, I found the attacks were really easy to find the timing for. Like with large katana bosses like this, it's typically like, I just found the timing to be really easy. You can get behind her here and it's a little bit easier to just avoid attacks. And again, that Mjolnir Hammer is so good. And a lot of her attacks had a really large wind up here where you can avoid them relatively easy. This one only took a couple attempts here. It just has a lot of different attacks that can interrupt you there. So yeah, if you can get the poison afflicted on her during the second phase of this fight, it just makes things a whole lot easier. And a big hammer bog to finish her off. This fight is pretty solid overall. I might actually say that this one is like another B tier pick. It's harder than Metagen Remnant, but not too challenging. But the next fight is a little bit cells. Actually, this depends when you do it. Like, I went and fought Holly early, was not a good idea. So I actually rearrange this. I'll put one armed hero Lyle next, then we'll go to Holly. Because it's the way you're supposed to do it, not the way that I was trying to do it. Open world games, when you have a set path that you're supposed to do. He was pretty tough if you were sticking close and doing like a melee build. I can imagine for two-handed greatswords, they had a bit more of a difficult time, because he also uses those. The trick to this was spam your abilities and poison. He went down really easy to poison. You can see his health bar just continually melting there. His poison is relatively, like, not crazy high, as you can see there. You got down for critical, and the most unfortunate thing is how hard it is to get the criticals off for this drain attacks in this game. But overall, I did find that this fight was relatively not too bad. Very short reach, and his attacks are kind of similar to Morgoth from Elden Ring. So if you know the timing of the big jumping attacks, I didn't find it to be too bad. He had a long wind-up, too, so if you got that Blood Reaver blade there from the Josee fight previously, you'll be doing fine, because you can just hammer away with that whenever he's doing these really long windups. And paired with the rune blades, as you can see there, you can just stick them on him and then use your Blood Reaver blade, which I found to be just insanely strong against this fight. And then 2, poison. Putting the venom on him takes him down really quick and easy. I didn't find this fight to be too challenging. Those large jumping attacks, you think it would take up my entire health bar. It barely did anything. I might actually say that the one-arm hero Lyle is like a C tier boss fight. I didn't find this one to be that challenging at all. And actually, the other two, I actually struggled a little bit more. This one was like first attempt. It wasn't even a challenge. It's just because he has such a huge hitbox. If you have like the rune blades, you can see they're spinning through him there, doing insane amounts of damage. And then we finally got the drain attack off. But yeah, didn't find him to be as hard as Holly thrice, Holly the Reaper. Now, you have to fight her 3 times prior to this. Those fights were annoying. One of them in particular in the apartment buildings, when she's flying up on the roof. That's beside the point. This fight is also hard because she comes at you really quickly. There's really weird mechanics here where you have to jump up on those flower beds to avoid her attacks, which was a little bit buggy and tricky at times. You have to focus on multiple things at once. Every single time you do this fight, it's going to be a bit tougher. I just found this one in general is crazy. Heavy hidden attacks, like you see there. Yeah, there's just something about this that was very challenging, even with the rune blade setup here. But with the Blood Reaver blade, again, you can do some pretty crazy damage with this thing. So yeah, you see there, that just completely wearing down her health bar quickly to get into the second phase, which the second phase is really something else. This also reminded me of the Revenant from Elden Ring Night Terrain, if you've played that. Funny character that I wish was a lot better. That's aside the fact. This boss has huge poison areas that she leaves behind, which is annoying because it's going to whittle away your health. She also has those attacks there, which you can accidentally stand in like that and, yeah, stun yourself. Not a good time, but the Blood Reaver blade does help a lot in this fight for getting the burst damage. This is where it gets annoying. I was stunned there, and she brought in her friend, which makes this fight a lot harder. So now for this fight, you're just continually trying to take down her friend. I'd recommend obviously getting rid of her friend here, but she's also going to be doing her own attacks here too, which makes it tough because, yeah, you're not going to be able to pay attention at all. This is one where it's a little bit easier with a weapon like the rune blades or the bayonet, because then you're able to actually stick away from them while they're just continually wailing away at you like that. And you can see I just threw the rune blades onto her and just played the defensive game. That's how I ended up getting through this fight. It was a pain. You had to watch out for all these different attacks that she was doing, and there's just a lot of chaos in this fight in general. I just found this one to be kind of tricky. You can avoid that big Rolana the Moon attack, but overall, I think that this fight was an S tier fight. This was one that I did struggle with, and I know some others did as well. It was just a tricky one that I'm not even sure what level you're supposed to be for this, but yeah, it was tough. I beat the game too at level 100, so I feel like you can obviously go a lot higher, but yeah, this was a tricky one. Also, her flying up in the air is hard to hit too. I will mention for her Resurgent boss fight though, whenever you go to face off against her again near the end of the game in this exact same fight, I used the bayonet, and this fight was a whole lot easier here because you can just set up and wail away with the, if you're using the Heavenly Strike. She does have some actually pretty annoying attacks in this, like this one here in the upgraded fight. Like, oh god. You can dodge that, but the timing is just annoying. It leaves behind a Toxic Realm. This attack here, though, the Heavenly Strike, just was super useful in this fight because you can just continually keep attacking her, use your bat to get away. She's going to keep blasting with that stupid annoying attack. But yeah, Heavenly Strike from the bayonet made this fight a whole lot easier. So I mentioned the bayonet's just crazy. And then next up is Hero Josee. This fight was interesting because it's like the fights that we've done previously, just a lot worse. The weapons are really cool. I like the look of the eyes there. She has that stupid fireball attack. It's not actually that hard to dodge, but yeah, there's another one where the Venom just helps. And Drawback Strike, Heavenly Strike, that combination is just really good in this. So yeah, just continually spamming that Heavenly Strike with Venom on her I found worked pretty well. She does have, again, some really tough moves at close range, so this is one that you're typically, in my opinion, was wanting to just kind of kite around the arena as much as possible, just due to the attacks that she has. But yeah, she does have the range attacks there, which aren't too bad. Just, yeah, you can sometimes get hit. But honestly, this fight isn't too bad. And the grand scheme of things, there's harder fights in this game. So yeah, well, this one, it's I think it took me a couple attempts. Nothing too fierce. Oh, this attack too is kind of annoying. This little beam. Yeah, the timing I just found a little tricky, but as if you kept away from her, it wasn't too bad. And got her with the drawback strike there. I'd have to say this is another B tier fight. I'd probably put it below the Josee fight the first time, and just above the Metagen Hunter. Now, I didn't even post a video for Hero Lyle because I just thought he was kind of a joke of a fight. I'm not sure what it was about both Lyle fights. I just found them really easy. So let me know in the comments if you were experiencing the same, because you can see there. Yeah, his health bar is basically down to half here, and all I did was just spam abilities and him and got in his face once. And yeah, this fight was just a ridiculously easy one to the point that I didn't think anyone would struggle with it. And he also got Craig there, so that's kind of cool too. But yeah, there's just something about this fight that I just found ridiculously easy. Like the posture break there, Craig doing his pizza cutter into the back of him. Drain attack. Yeah, you can just combo this boss relentlessly for whatever reason. Again, wasn't even over leveled when I beat this game. It's just there's some bosses that I felt were undertuned, and this was definitely one of them. I might actually put this below the real Lyle. I'm going to put that below in the C tier there. This one was just, it's ridiculously easy. And the drawback shot, again, being the GOAT. You'll be able to get away from him. Now, the next fight we have, what has to be one of the more brutal fights in the game. I did love the theming of it, though. Having dual Gatling guns while skating around and doing ice kicks. This fight's cool. Hero Holly was challenging, though. Both Holly fights I just found to be extremely brutal. Holly's one of my favorite characters, one of the best blood codes in the game, so it makes sense that she's going to be a bit of a challenge. But this one was on a whole other level. I did actually really enjoy this fight, I do want to say. I didn't think it was not really unfair in any way. It was relentless, but yeah, it was possible. I also just had to use I was using the grenade launcher at this point. That attack there was super frustrating. I got really lucky with the surviving of it, but yeah, my God, there's just something about this. You had to get that venom off really easily. There's some fun attacks there you could punish. I did think, again, it was a fun and rewarding boss fight. Challenging as all get out, but I personally did enjoy it. I also like the mechanic, how it got brighter as you continue to fight her. I really thought the presentation in this fight in general was just really cool. And I can't name another game where you do. I've thought of others that are similar, but I haven't thought one where you can fight someone that's literally figure skating around with dual Gatling guns. Such a cool theme to the boss, but its challenge was really what this is at. That attack there was one of the most frustrating to dodge. Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit. It was this attack here too, where it does this big ice blast where you just have to like run to the side here and then go and punish. Something about this was just really challenging, and again, both the Holly fights I do think were good, but they're tough. I would have to say this one is another one that I'm going to throw up in the S tier. I actually think this was harder than the other Hero Holly. Good fight though. I personally enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts though. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that did not like this one just because it could have felt cheap in certain ways, but yeah. When it's being cheap, you got to use a grenade launcher. And next up is Alessandro Gobbo and Oscar. Now, Oscar doesn't last too long. This fight was actually pretty nuts. I thought that this was challenging, and so did a lot of others. This is one that's just relentless in how fast he's attacking you there. You can get lucky with a few dodges, but it's really just a battle of attrition once it gets into the end. The second phase is much harder. I found the first phase only really lasted a minute. This one did take about 5 or 6 attempts for me to do. I do know that it was just a lucky attempt that I got, and I could have ended up doing this one for like 10 to 15 attempts. It was a challenge, but I do know that a lot of other people did struggle with this one, so I'm not alone in it. It was just a crazy fight. I did like it in general. It was a good fight. You want to try and rush and beat down Oscar as quickly as possible. You can get to the Gobbo fight, which he goes berserk. You do have some statues which you can kind of use to block certain things, but you see there, statues will go down quickly to those attacks. So yeah, my thought process for this, I probably should use the bayonet. I was trying to twin blades. I really wanted to get a twin blade build going. Because they are good at applying statuses, which he really needs just that venom to make this fight a lot easier. But yeah, he's just got so many long-reaching attacks. The wind-up, and it's hard to read what's coming next. You can get womboed into the wall like that. He makes it so you can't heal yourself. So yeah, such a challenging fight. And I do feel like I got kind of lucky with this one, but it was a good one. Also, his jump up in the air and just be annoying attack, that sucks. But in the end, we got the win. I still think this is another one that I'm going to throw up into the S tier. I think Hero Holly was a little bit harder, but he was definitely a challenging one for sure. Now next up is Zenon. This is a cool theme. I really like the idea of like a bull-headed boss like this, but I do think that he has like some pretty crazy hyper armor in this fight. Some of his attacks are a bit relentless. I do know some other people didn't like this boss fight very much. I was impartial to it. Like, some of the timing is a little bit challenging to dodge. He's quick, and he actually, what's funny is that I'll see memes all the time about Souls-like games where they swap targets really quickly. This fight is no exception to that. He can be wailing away fighting Lou there, and then all of a sudden he's turning his eyes onto you. So yeah, this is one there, like, it's just kind of silly. Like, he could be literally just not focus on you at all, and then just at a beam of a second turn away and fight you just like that. But I found the dodge timing wasn't terrible for some of those dodges. The second form's really cool because you see Zenon in it. Like, that big golden thing is actually him, and then a bunch of Zadwigas. Pretty funny. I found that this was kind of like just panic dodge. I didn't really know what I was doing. I actually got the second phase first attempt, but it was that first phase that I found to be a lot more challenging. Avoid the balls, do your thing. This part in particular was very confusing. You only really get hit if the balls don't have contact with you, so you can sometimes do some spells like that. And then he does this big cross attack. If you got poison off on him, it does make it a little bit easier, but this was one that was quite challenging. I do think I'm going to throw this one up into the A tier. I don't mind it though. It was a fun fight. It was honestly pretty enjoyable. Now, I forgot to include the retainer boss fight. That's the one that I showed really at the start. I thought this was a really funny one. You had to hit the tentacles on its back, which was a little bit easier with certain weapons. I could see this being a struggle with one-handed swords and twin blades, but with rune blades there, you can see you can do that charge heavy with the ancient hunters, which lets you do that really high up attack, which chipped away his health bar really quickly because every other part of his body is just really resistant to damage. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like 10 times more. But you can see there, even using the Bloodhunt Reaver blade, only 250 damage. And I've done this fight a few times. If I hit the tentacles with it, it did like 4,000 damage. So, like, yeah, his body resists like 20 times the damage. Pretty insane. He does stagger though, and if you can get him down like you saw at the start of the video, you can legit just completely chip away his health bar. So yeah, he has the dogs out there. You can just run up right behind him like that and just continually keep kicking his butt like that. Ridiculous, but you can see if you get that posture break off, he becomes a cakewalk. So yeah, I don't think the retainer of Idris is that hard. I'm just going to throw this in the B tier. It did take a couple attempts. I might actually put it at the very bottom of the B tier. This attack, kind of funny. You can you jump over it like that. Yeah, nothing too fierce. And now getting into the final bosses. Hero Valentin. Now, this is a pretty tricky one. There are 3 really final bosses here, which you can continue to keep doing, so don't worry if you're playing through. The trick to this fight is like what we did with all the others. Apply Venom, use Drawback Shot to get away. Use, I found Blade Dancer insanely good on this particular weapon you got from FRANZ, the very first boss that we fight, because Blade Dancer actually procs off of this with every shot that we fire from that skill, scaling up our damage even further. Heavenly Strike also doing this, and this also applies Venom really quickly. I was just using a Venom item to be able to apply Venom, but also the Venom weapon form A works really well. This fight was pretty okay. I didn't find it to be like a crazy hard fight for the final boss, in all honesty. Yeah, being able to get that Heavenly Strike off was pretty crazy. And then he does roar like that, so you can go in and then use your Bat Jail. He does have that attack, which is kind of tough. You can dodge it relatively easy if you're paying attention. I was not. But yeah, you just see his health slowly chipping away there. Drawback Shot to give yourself the range. I personally found it to be easy. This is kind of a cheesy build, but compared to some of the others, this didn't feel like a tough final boss whatsoever. So yeah, I might actually just put this one into the B tier. Wasn't that crazy. Maybe above Remnant Hunter. Yeah, this wasn't that hard. Now, Soul Saviour Valentin, on the other hand, this one was a little different. For the final-ish boss, not the true final boss, but one of the final bosses, he did have some attacks that I felt like were just annoying. This one here. Actually, a lot of his attacks, because he's flying around. That's what makes this fight a friggin' pain in the butt, is the mobility that he has. So yes, you are at the very end of the game. You got all the weapons and tools at your disposal. I actually found that using Holly's Blood Code, the S tier one that you get at this level, pretty nice. I fortunately dodged stupidly into that, but the great thing about the Holly Blood Code is it lets you continue to use Ichor even after you run out of Ichor, but it uses your health. So you could actually spam some attacks. I found it to be decent, even though this is kind of a battle of attrition. You do want to get that Venom off as soon as possible to make it a lot easier. So that was kind of my strategy, is using the bayonets. Like a lot of the other hard bosses. But compared to the other Valentin, I think this one is a lot harder, and it makes a lot more sense that he's not the real true ending. Like, it's just the way that they laid it out. He's not, the previous fight wasn't the real final boss, even though it kind of advertised, not advertised, but it kind of felt that way. You want to continue and do this ending here, where you fight this boss. He's a lot harder, because he's just going to be flying around, being annoying the whole time, and his head attacks do hit really hard. So I'd say Soul Saviour Valentin. This one was definitely a challenging one, and I'd actually have to say that I'm actually going to put this one into the A tier. It's going to go below FRANZ, but above Zenon. And this is how some of my experiences with the Resurgence Core went. You just get into the arena here and just get completely just gobsmacked, beat up, destroyed. Ridiculous. Like, come on, that was actually insane. Can we get that again back on the jumbo screen? Boom, right at the start of the arena. And then right into the tentacle that double hit me. And then he turns around. I'm getting back up. And boom. This fight was honestly quite challenging. Silly enough. I was able to get the next attempt. Same strategy using the bayonets. I actually brought Noah out this time, who's a lot tankier and better at grabbing aggro. But you see how good Heavenly Strike there is. I'm using the Holly Blood Code again just to drain my health if you continue spamming that attack, which I mentioned is really nice. If you can get a crazy offensive going, it's going to make the fight a whole lot easier. He did slide around the ink like that. I actually did think this fight was really fun. But you see that there, entire health bar in one attack. Yeah, this was a tough one. This was a tough one. But same strategy, honestly, just peppering away with that attack. It'll become a lot easier. I do think that this was a pretty good one. I might actually say this is another S tier fight. This was a tough one. It did take a few attempts just because of the attacks. Oh, so freaking annoying getting knocked down that easily. Yeah, this one will take you a few attempts. But it did feel good to actually beat him, so that's worth something. I personally enjoyed this fight, and I do think it's one of the harder ones. And for a secret boss, it should be. So I want to actually put the Resurgence Core into the S tier. And you know why? You saw that clip at the very start of this section where I got Womble combo to my death right as soon as I walked in the door. That happened to me a few other times. I just shot him to death like a loser, but hey, it worked. So that is my final list of the most difficult bosses of Code Vein 2. Now, I do think that between all of these, the Hero Holly, this was the one that gave me the most trouble, and I know a lot of people actually struggle with both Holly fights, so I do think they are kind of S tier for where you face them. FRANZ is another really tough one. He's actually what I think to be one of the most challenging just because of where you face off against him. If he was a few moments later when you got better loot, probably be a little better. Alessandro, just crazy mobility, and the Resurgence Core might be a little bit harder. I might actually rearrange them and go like that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in the next video.